Hey yo, shout out to the whole Staten Island. You heard the Harbor, Park Hill, Stapleton, West Brighton, New Brighton, Port Richmond. You heard the whole New York City, whatever part of Staten Island I may have forgot. Let me know in the comments, man. You heard? This is a very serious and controversial street story, and I want your opinions on it. So make sure you let me know how you feeling in them comments. And that's a fact, Z-Lord. Shout out to the bro Mo. Good looking for giving us this story. We did this story years and years back on video, and I lost the footage and I was hurt. I was hurt for years, and we finally reconnected and we did the story over, and it's even better than the first time we did it. And that's a fact. So once again, shout out to the whole Staten Island. Shout out to the whole NYC. If you from NYC, throw them Statue of Liberty emojis up in the comments. But wherever you from and you rep that comment gang, that Slim Blunt gang, tear this up. You heard? Z-Man.
It happened so fast, I didn't want to just run to the car because bullets was everywhere. So I had to run with them, past the car. On the walk back, my girl is out the car, hit. One of the bullets went through the door, went through her, and ended up in the council where the cup holders are. The bullet is inside there. They're sitting there, smoking.
I know you got one of the biggest families on Staten Island.
Right.
When was the first time you met this dude or saw Bilal?
All right, we all grew up in the Harbor. They was in building 195, and my family was in building 189, right across from each other. So actually, it was my big brother Mercury and them from the group, the Foursome D's, and my other brothers that they all grew up together because they was in that age category. I'm actually the youngest out of my siblings, you know what I mean? But I was aware of him growing up, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So you say he grew up in the Harbor. He wasn't originally from Brooklyn. Some people said they thought he may have been from Brooklyn.
Yeah, he is from Brooklyn. He spent a good share of his life in Brooklyn, but the majority, the rest of his life was on Staten Island. Yeah. So he came over as a teenager. Let's say, yeah, he came over as a teenager.
Yeah. And you said at this time, when you was young, Jamaicans was coming in the Harbor trying to take over.
Well, I would say that was later on in the 80s when the invasion, around 81, 82, 83, all that, you know, that was still an invasion on Staten Island when the Jamaicans came and they was coming with the big truck jewelry and, the fancy cars and getting money, you know what I mean? They was really big on Staten Island, you know what I mean? And it was like when they came, this other kid from Guyana, you know what I mean, came. He was Guyanese, and his name was Dusty. You know what I mean? He set the precedent on Staten Island as far as that money thing, that putting them numbers in and putting that twerk in. You know, people really was like, yo, this guy's that guy. Every time you see him, he had on Gucci, everything Gucci, head to toe. Every time you see him, he had a wild afro, like Crazy Sam back in the days. Like, he never got no haircuts or none of that. But every time you see him, he was heavy with the jewelry and Gucci. Straight up, every day. Yeah.
And he was in the projects?
He was all over. It wasn't nowhere he couldn't go. Because he was giving that work out. He was, working with different ones, you know what I mean? But it was a couple of situations where people tried to test his gangster. And I ain't gonna mention no names, but he made example out of a few people, you know what I mean? And when you know what I mean? But he made a few example out of people, and that set the role for him the rest of the time, because nobody tested him, because they already knew he was about that life.
What you mean, like dudes was trying to rob him or something?
Yeah, man. It was a situation. I ain't gonna say no names, because when I tell the story, when you know, they was in Park Hill. Him and his boy named Dale. They was in Park Hill, and they was on the side of 55 Bowling Street. And bunch of wildcats from the harbor came and ran up on him with a fake gun and robbed him. You know, he ain't think nothing about it. But it turned out after they robbed him for the jewelry and whatever little bit of money that he had on him, they took from him and his boy. Couple months later, the head of that little crew that robbed him, they found him dead in front of his building. I ain't gonna say no more names or whatever, but you know, they found him. You know, he was finished. He was finished. Yeah.
And he was a dude that was like fucking with Bilal?
Well, Bilal chose, he picked and chose who he would mess with. You know, he used to mess with a lot of the old school dudes that was coming up in the harbor back then. You know what I mean? You know, later on, these other guys that came up after, because, you know, Bilal did a stench. You know, he did a stretch in jail. You know what I mean? So, you know, he was always going back and forth doing bids or whatever. So during that time when he wasn't there, these dudes was coming up and making a name for themselves or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's like, in between time, you know, when he did come home, you know, Bilal would, you know, lock the neighborhood down. You know what I mean? You know, because he was always gangster. He was always who he was. He always knew how to dress. He was that dude. People always gave him respect because he did come in the era when the old school dudes that was running the harbor, they all, you know what I mean? You know, they was doing their numbers. You know what I mean? But yeah, he caught a couple of days, going back and forth. You know what I mean? But dudes always gave him respect when he came back to the hood. You know what I mean? That's how that went. It was that time when he was coming out of his building and they was about to get the busting their guns off, but me and my old Earth was standing across outside, and when they saw my old Earth standing there, they decided not to bust them guns off because I had screamed out like, yo, my old Earth is right here. It was a situation where some of his workers had got caught up in some money, where there was money went missing or whatever, and it got real heated. You know what I mean? It got real heated. Again, I don't want to mention those names, but you know what I mean? Because, you know, to protect these people. But long story short is, they was gonna do these boys dirty. You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of money missing. So it so happened that instead of busting them guns off, they decided to take it to a different location. You know what I mean? Because like I said, my old Earth was out there, and they had respect for my old Earth, so to speak. You know what I mean? They had respect for her, so that got terminated, and they took it somewhere else. And come to find out, the two people that they was going to give it to, one of them got hit up, and you know, like the other one was hospitalized. He wound up getting paralyzed. Yeah, it got real funky. But they didn't do it there in that area. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how that went.
So what you mean? Niggas had them dudes hemmed up and backed out ratchets as soon as y'all was coming through?
Yeah, because we was, like I said, me and my old Earth, we standing in front of the building because, you know, my old Earth was watching the grandkids in the park. They was all in the park, because the park is not too far from where the two buildings are. So she was just standing in the front, we was standing in the front talking or whatever. And they was about to, you know, do them dirty, but, you know, because they saw my old Earth standing there, they took it to a different location and, you know, made other plans for whatever took place, you know what I mean? Yep.
You was saying that anytime son was in the harbor, they gave him a slot time to hustle when nobody else hustled out there?
Yeah, it was crazy, man, because dudes was, it could have been anywhere from like 20 to 30 dudes on the block every day getting money. But when Bilal came out at 7 o'clock in the evening to 7 o'clock in the morning, he wasn't allowed to get money out there. he locked it down. And every time after like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, he would bust his gun off in the air, blah, 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 just giving dudes the warning, like, so dudes knew to go out. It's time to pack it up, pack it in. The law's coming out. So it was a situation where, again, I'm not gonna mention those days in front of Building 139, because you gotta think he had the whole block radius of Brave Branch Street. You know what I mean? Any money coming down Brave Branch Street, you know what I mean, was all his, and that was the money block. So this one kid, he's also a shooter, getting money and all that. He made a sale to one of the white dudes, and the law asked him, like, yo, you just sold to that white kid? And your man, he lied, he who he is. He's like, yeah, I sold to him. I was like, oh yeah. He pulled that thing out and hit him 4 times. Bow, 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 bow. 4 times, hit him 4 times. And at the time, the other person, that law, he was like, yo, he was dirty. He had dirties on him, and he had that thing on him. So he told one of his boys, yo, take all this stuff off of me, man, and bring it, put it somewhere, man. Because he knew the cops and the ambulance was on their way. He didn't want to get, hemmed up with all that stuff on him, you know what I mean? So he was more worried about getting caught with that, and not even, like he took the shots and ate that, like, all right, I'm shot, cool. So he just laid on the ground with a C cross, leaning up against the fence, waiting for them to come, paramedics and all that or whatever. But yeah, that was a crazy situation.
Where he got hit at, though?
I think it was a couple of late shots. I think it was a couple of late shots. I think he got shot in the stomach region. You know what I mean? It was 4 of them. I think it was 3 in the legs and 1 in the stomach. Yeah.
So them dudes ain't know each other like that?
Nah, they knew each other. They knew each other because, again, a lot of us, that person grew up. He grew up in the harbor. 124. I'm gonna say the building. I ain't gonna say any names because you know. But yeah, he grew up in 124, and Bilal grew up. 124 is on the pathway of both of me and Bilal's building. 124 is at the top of Brave Branch Street, and we at the bottom on Continental. But our pathway walks straight up through the middle, and when you walk on that pathway, you pass right by 124. So, he grew up as a kid, and everybody knew everybody in the harbor, but it was a respect thing. It was the respect thing. When Bilal came out, you didn't do that. Nobody did that. I wasn't never out there like that. I was always, dancing, traveling, Force D's, Wu-Tang, whatever I was doing, you know what I mean? But them dudes was out there getting money, all of them, you know what I mean? And everybody knew how Bilal was. So, like, if you went on his time and after hours and you did, you know what I mean? Like, you was kind of asking for it, you know what I mean? You was kind of asking for it, but this is the repercussions of that. That was the repercussions, yeah. That was the repercussions.
Have you ever seen anybody be aggressive with Bilal, like, that wasn't, aside from that situation, like somebody out there in the harbor that just wasn't trying to hear son? Or did dudes just fuck with him? And
let me tell you, all the money get is respect to him. All the money get is respect to him. So to answer your question, nobody came at him sideways, because he was considered an OG, and even the young dudes that was on the block getting money and busting their guns and all that, they all had respect for him. It was so deep that he actually took a lot of them up under his wing. And it was a thing to where, y'all dudes is cool, so, y'all can get your money during the daytime, y'all do what y'all do, you know what I mean? And I think they started getting money together, you know what I mean? Like, to a certain extent, you know what I mean? It's like, yo, you look out for me, I look out for y'all, you know what I mean? I put you under the wing, because they was always together. Again, I'm not gonna mention no names, because when you know, but yeah, it was, the 150 crew, Brave Branch Street, the 150 crew, you know what I mean? And he took he had a lot of mad love for people, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, nobody never crossed him though. It was always a respect thing in the harbor. It was always a respect thing.
Was it ever any other projects in Staten Island that tried to come in the harbor and take over shit?
Not if they were smart. It was a few dudes that came. I'm glad you asked that. It was the dude that came from Queens. They used to work for Pappy Mason. I think they called him. They called him. He was up under all them dudes. He was up under all them dudes, and they came to the projects, our projects, and they was talking about how they doing dynamite and baby carriages to get this money. They don't care about nothing. You know what I mean? They come to get this money. And this was during the era, and at this time, the law was out here. The young boys was out there getting this money, and they set the president out there. So them dudes coming from Queens, not knowing Staten Island, thinking that it's soft or whatever. That dude, they found him not breathing anymore in back of the building, 124, and nobody know how it happened or who did it, but he was found, lifeless. Yeah, they found him lifeless in back of 124 in the grass, and this is in the 80s, you know what I mean? This is in the 80s coming into the 90s and all that, you know what I mean? Like 91, 92, you know what I mean? It was kind of funky back then, you know what I mean? But you ain't just coming into those projects talking about you doing dynamite and baby carriages and to get this money and all that. Ain't nothing soft about Staten Island. Ain't nothing soft about Staten Island. Just like any other project, you have to buy the 5 barrels, man. Everybody, it ain't where you're from, it's where you at, man. You know what I mean? And you come out there talking about you doing dynamite and baby carriages and all that to get this money and all that. Yeah, they made an example out of him, and that was the end of that. Yeah, that was the end of that.
But Law, he had did several bids. He was going back up north and coming home every once in a while.
Yup. Yeah, man.
So when he was away, who was running that projects?
That's just it. The projects is so big. It's a whole bunch of people on Braybrand Street getting it. And see, because 124, 142, 150, 168, 361, all that's on one side. On the other side, adjacent to them is 178, 153, 139, 208, and then in back of that is 20, 14. Then you got all the 3-story buildings. You know what I mean? If you look at the map, you see the short buildings as to the tall buildings. So in between all that, and we even had a spot on the 139 side of the buildings by the flagpole. They used to call that Spanish Harlem because that's where all the Puerto Ricans was. You know what I mean? So they had their territory, getting their money and all that, and everything in between was, everybody scrambling because that's how big the complex is out there. So everybody was getting money at one point. Nobody, it was enough money for everybody to eat. Nobody had to step on nobody's toes. As long as, people had their assigned buildings, people had their assigned, spots in front of the building outside. Nobody had to cross nobody. There was so much money out there. All right, so for the most part, all his dudes that the law was messing with was like the older heads. So by time went on and we getting out of the 80s and we into the 90s and all that, 93, 94 and all that. Now the young boys is coming up, making a name for themselves. So it was at different times with different buildings was just popping. So 124 at one time was the money building. Again, I'm not gonna mention no names because when you know. So at that time, 124 was popping, then 150 was popping, and these was all different cliques of people getting money. Then you had 168 that was popping. Then 168 was popping when the dudes from Queens came out there and said they throwing dynamite and baby carriages. But the 168 clique was thick out there. They was thick getting money, motorcycles, dirt bikes, cars, driving Alfa Romeos and all that. They was getting money. Dudes was getting money, and they were young boys. They were young boys coming up. Young boys getting it. So, you know, it was different times, people, you know, in cliques was getting it, doing it big, doing it real big.
So when them Jamaicans came in, you said that was in the early 80s when the Jamaicans was in the harbor? Niggas ended up trying to run them out the projects?
No. What happened was when they robbed the dude Dusty, when they robbed him in Park Hill, he was so live, he came through on a moped with the Uzi, and he saw the head leader, you know, the one that, you know, robbed or whatever, and he didn't nothing happened to him that day, but he was on the moped, you know, spraying that Lysol, so to speak, and you know, just like listen, man, y'all don't rob me, I'm not that person. It's the first time you ever see, you know, a Guyanese on a moped spraying that Lysol, you know what I mean?
You said that was Park Hill?
That was the harbor on Braeburn Street, coming down Braeburn Street. People know this, trust me, people know the story I'm talking about. I ain't even gonna go too deep into it, but he was spraying that Lysol, you know what I mean? He sprayed that Lysol, keeping the air fresh.
So what you mean, after that, them niggas got up out of there?
Well, you know, for the time being, because, you know, that wasn't his territory. But he was coming through because he knew a few people there. You know, characters I won't mention. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was just, you know, you don't rob nobody and expect nothing, not to don't expect no repercussions. You know what I mean? You know, you don't do that. Cause you know, this is you know, this is what happens when it comes back to you. Karma comes back, you know, in different forms, you know. So this is what happened.
So let me ask you this. Do you remember a time when Bilal was just a regular dude and he wasn't into crime, doing none of that?
Yo, that's crazy you say that. Because yes, it was a time, because he was always a fly dressing dude, going to parties, he was going to Brooklyn, hanging out. You know, he loved hanging out in Brooklyn clubs, you know what I mean? He kept a fly chick, you know what I mean? And, you know, it wasn't even about doing the crimes, because he was always a fly dude. Plus, he was Muslim. So, you know, he was always, you know, righteous, you know, he was always wise and civilized with it. You know what I mean? But then, you know, like...
He was Muslim or guard body?
Muslim. Mm. Yeah, Muslim. Yep. Definitely. But yeah, it's funny you asked that. He was definitely a fly dude, and he definitely had a peaceful period. You know what I mean? Because I guess he wasn't trying to do, you know, he was trying to, you know, keep from going back and forth to jail. So he was trying to actually, you know, change his life around. And, you know, some people bring you out of retirement, you know what I mean? And, yeah, towards the end of his life, because, you know, he came to Jersey during the last days of his life. And, I think it was the Woodbridge Mall, where he stole like $5,000 worth of furs and clothes, because he was good. He was good at boasting and all that. And he had a nice car, real nice car hooked up. He always kept his car clean and fresh. And he got into a high-speed chase with the Jersey police. And he wound up, I think it was the Gulf's Bridge, coming back to Staten Island, when he crashed. And his engine caught on fire, and he jumped out of the car. He jumped off the bridge into the not the water, but on the side where like the grassy waters at, the grassy and all that, and that's a far jump. So they say he broke every bone in his body. And on the interim of the cops arrested him, they probably could have added a couple more jabs and punches in there, you know what I mean? If all your bones in your body is broken and people is pouncing on you and trying to arrest you and throw your hands behind your back and all that, it's a good chance, you know, they kind of, you know, added to his death. You know what I mean? Because he died ultimately from that. He died from that. You know, so, you know, but that was the end of his, the end of chapter of the law, because he always told us that I'm never going back to jail. He always told people I'm never going back to jail. And next time, basically, he said this, what DMX said in the movie, next time the state or the county see me, it's going to be in the body bag. And he meant that. He meant that because he did not want to go back to jail because, like I said, he did so many bids. But before all that, it was a situation that me and him even got into. You know, well, I wouldn't say me particularly. He just got into a little scrapple. Again, I'm not gonna mention no names because you know, with some dudes from the building that I lived in, they got into a little, you know, shootout. And at this time, I was dating this Spanish chick. I ain't gonna mention no names. She came to pick me up about 3 in the morning after she came from work. You know, she was a high heel diva. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so she came to pick me up. And on the intro of me walking down to her car to go get in her car, these dudes start shooting. They coming out of my building, shooting down at the law on Continental. And as I'm walking, no, matter of fact, no, that's wrong. The law is coming down from 124 on the walkway, because remember I told you the walkway was connected from 124 coming down towards our buildings. So he's coming down shooting at these dudes. So them coming into the building and me walking down to the car, bullets is flying. So I had to start running like I had to run with them to not get hit with no bullets. So I had to pass by my girl's car. You know what I mean? Because it happened so fast. I didn't want to just run to the car because bullets was everywhere. So I had to run with them, pass the car, and ultimately down towards where the big store was. You know what I mean? And on the walk back, my girl is out the car, hit. One of the bullets went through the door, went through her, and ended up in the council where the cup holders are. The bullet is inside there. They're sitting there smoking. Long story short is she fall on the ground. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, yo, call an ambulance. Jamie got shot. Word to Kimmy. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. So long story short, they ambulance come. You know, I wasn't, you know, I'm a regular Mo Schmo, you know what I mean? I ain't out there busting guns and fighting gun wars and all that. So, you know, I put the information in. Like, yeah, this is who did what. You know what I mean? Because it couldn't have been the boys that was coming out of my building. Because if they was letting off, they was letting off going up while the law was coming down. So it was definitely one of his projectiles that went through the car. Because even at a point when he got to Continental, he looked in the car and saw that she was shot. And he was like, you know, even apologizing and all that on the interim of her getting out the car. So one thing led to another. And I gave some information because I wasn't going to war. Because that wasn't my cup of tea. I wasn't into that. You know what I mean? And few people was mad or whatever, but I said, you got to get over that, because I'm still who I am. You know what I mean? I still got the biggest family out here, whatever. But I'm not going to war to prove a point to nobody. My girl got shot. Whoever don't like it, got to handle it for whatever it is. I did what I did, and it's done. You know what I mean? And that's how that went. So he did a little stretch from that, you know, and after he came home from that, we was brought together and we was able to talk about it, hash it out, and he understood. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever happened, cool, we good now. I understood, because he knew that I wasn't gonna go to war with you, because I grew up watching you. I'm the youngest. I watched you and my brothers and all y'all grow up together. You know what I mean? As teenagers and all that. So it was what it was, and that got squashed. So here we are today, years later. Straight up.
That's some real shit that he came home and y'all was able to talk that shit out, and he was able to forgive that, and you was able to forgive him.
Yep. That's how that went. Yep. Definitely.
Where your girl got shot at though? You said.
Alright. So when she got shot through the side. So it was 2 inches from. It went straight through her. It was such a clean shot. It went straight through her, through like by her hip. It came out the other side, on the other side of the, by the hip, and it was 2 inches from spine. It was 2 inches from actually killing her, but it didn't. They said it was such a clean shot that you could actually treat it as if she got stabbed with a number 2 pencil. So you know what I mean? I was flabbergasted that she even got shot, but I was like okay with the fact that she wasn't going to die from it. You know what I mean? Because she was small, petite body. You know what I mean? She got shot with like I'm not sure if it was a 9mm or 4.5, but it was something. It was a big caliber. But it was such a clean shot, and I guess from the bullet coming through the door and into her, it went through her, came out the side, and the bullet ended up in the console, in the cup holder. It was crazy, my nigga. It was crazy situation, man. But yeah, man.
You said that was broad daylight?
That was nighttime, 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning, going into the next day or whatever. She had just came home from work because she was a high heel diva, working at one of them places. I ain't gonna mention too much, but high heel diva coming to get her man, and so on the interim of her coming to pick me up, all that took place. Yeah. Yep.
Let me ask you this though: after son came home from that bid,
right.
How long after that? That was his last time going up top?
Yeah, that was his last time going to the top.
And
that was his last time.
How was y'all relationship? Like, you used to see him after that a lot?
Not so much, because I was living in Jersey then. I was living in Jersey by then. You know what I mean? I was in Jersey. I was going, back and forth to Staten Island periodically, but not as much as I should have been. But yeah, that's when I was living in Jersey, where in the spot where you know me, where we met at. You know what I mean? Mm. I was living there by then. Word.
So that was only a couple of years before that happened?
Yep.
Yeah, because I forgot to ask you that too. Like, the crazy shit is you said son was well into like what, his 50s?
I'll say it one more time.
You said Bilal was well into his 50s, still out out there blowing ratchets and shit?
Dude, yes. Because now, the few times he did come home, and I told you he was on his fly stuff, and he was behaving himself. But towards the end, he had turned into a beast, and that's when the 7 o'clock to 7 in the morning stuff was taking place, busting people and.
How old was he at that time? Like,
yeah, he was well into his 50s. He was well into his 50s. Yeah.
And that was like 2000 what?
That was like 2000. See, because I don't know exactly when hold on, wait a minute, because I moved out here 2006, so that had to be like 2001, 2002, somewhere in that area. Yeah, he was wild. He was on his wild cowboy then. He was wild. He was really wild with it. Word, man.
He was out. You think was he out there in the harbor having beef with young dudes too? I mean, like,
No. Because because at that time he's already established as who he is already. He's the OG. They looking up to him. They respecting him. And like I said, he wasn't scared to bust his gun. So from 7, everybody knew the times. They knew the times, like 7 o'clock. You know what I mean? Nobody on his shift. And he would come out at a certain time, let that thing off, let everybody know he's out there. And from 7 to 7 in the morning was his hours on Brand Street. Word.
Said niggas be clearing it out?
Yeah, it was clearing it out. They was clearing it out. Yeah. Yup. Now hold up now. Whoever was cool and who was up under him, they was able to maneuver, you know, because he let them. But everybody else, for the most part, yeah, they was indoors. And can't nobody dispute nothing I'm saying. They can only agree to what I'm saying, because this dude was busting. He was, like I said, he was busting his gun, and he wasn't no joke. He busting his gun and setting and listen, making examples, straight up.
Yeah, bro, man.
I wasn't in the streets like that. I was. They know me as Dad to Mo with the big family, Dale family and all that. You know what I mean? So, I wasn't out there trying to go to war with dudes and all that. So when I gave the information and all them, it was sour and feeling some kind of way. But what you gonna do? What could you do? You know what I mean? I'm still who I am. You know what I mean? Like what? Like what's the next move?
How long he laid up for that?
I think he did a little 3 to 6 or 2 to 6 or something like that. Nothing crazy. But it could have been 4 years. But 3 years, 4 years, whatever it was. He came home. We was able to squash it and resume the love. But with the long hand of the spoon, straight up.
Yeah, he knew you wasn't in the streets, man. He can't expect somebody that's a civilian and somebody that's just minding their business, that's not out there trying to blow guns and get money and sell drugs. You feel what I'm saying? That you not in that life. So he probably understood that and was like, yo, my bad.
Right. And that's exactly how that went, Papa. Oh, you hit it right on the head. That's the hammer and the nail.
A real gangster, though, he only expects that type of shit from other real gangsters.
Right.
You understand? If that's the risks of the game. When you in these streets doing shit, if you happen to hit a civilian ain't gonna owe you none of that.
Right.
So it's a part of the game. It's a risk in the game, and he understood that.
And that's another thing. That's a true point, because he was who he was, but he knew the repercussions of it, the ins and the outs of the game, and being in the streets and all that. You know what I mean? So when he did come home, we was able to be brought together and hash out any indifferences. And he's like, yo, man, I got nothing but love for you, man. We all, come on, man. We grew up from each other, man. 195, 189, he recognized all that. He was like, I wasn't expecting you to go to war with you or none of that, man. Come on, man. He was like, I watched you grow up, man. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was all love, man. It was all love.